devices that we've got all over.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this community webcast. We are really excited to get things reinstated here on the Meet the Expert series for the community. We think it's a great series. It's a great way for everyone to kind of get involved in terms of new product, existing product, taking advantage of some of the key features and really trying to derive more value out of your solution. Today, we'll be talking about unified self-service and service catalog, of which I'm sure everyone is familiar with, but I think we're faced with some challenges really in terms of how people have deployed self-service, service catalog, whether it's been lacking in terms of really providing value for your customers, and we're really going to try to unpackage that today and talk about that. So we're really excited. So with me today, we have John Weston, who many of you probably have either heard on presentations previously, may have already worked with him in the past, but we're pleased to have John, John with us today. If you don't know, he is a senior principal consultant here at CA. He's been with CA since 2007, and he's been a consultant, a service management consultant since 2001, so he's got a lot of great history and knowledge, of course. So today, what we'd like to do is kind of go through a few slides in terms of the presentation. We'll just talk a little bit about some of the challenges, and then we'll have John jump on. He'll take us through a demonstration of some of the key features around self-service, service catalog. We'll take a look at different types of self-service, what types of self-service are available for customers, what they should be looking for, opening issues, requests, etc. Then we'll also take a look at some of the other key features around SDM and service catalog. What I'd like to ask is that everyone stay muted if at all possible. We are going to take questions at the end of the presentation. If you do have a question, you can use the chat feature that's available to you in the WebEx tool, and we'll try to answer all those questions as efficiently and expeditiously as we can throughout the presentation. As I mentioned, if you do want to ask a question at the end of the presentation, go ahead and you're going to have to unmute yourself, and that's a #6, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll have the lines open. Again, throughout the presentation, if you could stay muted, that'd be great. Just kind of keep things quiet. And we'll try to, as I mentioned, we'll answer those questions as we get through the presentation itself. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of content to cover. So here's a glaring statistic that kind of sets the stage for the presentation itself. One is that, 81% of organizations out there, and again, we're kind of talking about the community as a whole, and I'm sure this is representative of kind of what's going on out there with your solutions as well. 81% of organizations have some form of self-service, online forms for users to submit their issues. But the real kicker here is that 1 out of 4 rate their online self-service forms as successful. And that's a huge problem. That's a major issue. That's an impediment, a block, and it's stopping your customers, your end users, from really engaging you through self-service. And of course, the downstream effect of that is, exponential in terms of magnitude with its impact to the service desk and to the business as a whole. And as a result of that, what we're seeing is that, business users are now starting to trend to use IT as a last resort. And that's a huge problem, and that's why we really wanted to have this conversation today as kind of a starter around what we can do to kind of change that. And we will have follow-up presentations, as we kind of continue this Meet the Expert series, where we're really going to start to look at very specific areas within self-service or service catalog that we can really try to help everyone kind of overcome this challenge. A quick, another, few data points here. And, you know, hopefully this is not surprising, but this is kind of what we're seeing, and this was a Tech Validate survey last year that we had quite a few respondents kind of tell us what was going on in terms of their self-service solution or service catalog solution or around knowledge. And some of these are pretty glaring in that 40% or almost 40%, 38% find it difficult to find things on their IT portal, probably no surprise. Knowledge is a problem. It's stashed in different places. Almost 40% again are going outside of IT to find information that can help them solve problems. So you can see here the trend here is that, you know, even though we've taken the time and the effort to try to stand up a self-service or service catalog solution, somehow or another we're not hitting the mark. And there are a number of reasons behind that. It's the expectations of customers, of end users, of what they expect, how they want to interact with IT and the service desk. Those are all huge problems that we're facing today, and there's a whole new generation of users that are coming in that we may or may not even be able to communicate with because they want to communicate differently and collaborate differently. So we have our challenges, we have our problems. The question is, you know, what are we going to do about it? I think everyone would agree that, you know, not all self-service solutions are built the same. You know, if we're just exposing forms online, that's probably not the right approach. But I can tell you that, you know, from our research and from, you know, the direction that we're going from a service management and SDM perspective, we're really taking a hard look at the usability, the user experience, and we're driving, you know, that kind of approach and research approach from, you know, looking at other solutions that are out there. And they could be social, they could be B2B solutions, but the way that people want to interact is completely different. They want it to be more Amazon, more Google-like in terms of searching. The interaction, the collaboration needs to be more Facebook and Twitter-like, more personalized in context. You know, your self-service solution, service catalog should know who we are when we log in, what our history, our activities are, our preferences are, you know, what our assets are. All those things should be, you know, right there in front of us, available, you know, for us to use, and especially when it comes to, you know, issue resolution or, you know, requesting services. So we do have our challenges. We are changing the paradigm. You know, there are things that are fantastically happening in SDM. We definitely will be talking to you about that in future sessions. But today we're really kind of focused on self-service and service catalog, and that's where we want to take it today. And like I said, we are definitely going to be taking questions throughout the presentation and at the end. Again, I ask that you stay muted until the end. We'll unmute the lines and take those questions on the open line, or you can use the chat feature. But to set the stage, before I hand things off to John, we're really talking about a unified experience here. We want this to be the one-stop shop, one place where people go and, from a familiarity standpoint, understand, you know, the types of things that they can do within the self-service portal, even within the catalog, or even within their own devices, to be able to request those services, so they have that same familiar experience, regardless of their interaction method or channel, I should say, as they're communicating with the service desk. And again, you know, we need to do a better job of presenting knowledge, presenting, you know, resolutions, and the way that those things are packaged, the way that they are searched for, the way that we expose the information should be and must be, I should say, a unified experience. And of course, you know, the upside to all of that is that, you know, we're really trying to, you know, minimize the amount of repetitive interactions that users and customers have with the service desk. So, you know, from an analyst standpoint or from a service desk standpoint, we're not wasting resources, and they can be focused on the real task at hand, those priority issues. And of course, if we do all those things well, customers are happy. That means that they're productive, and those things are critically important to the business, especially in, you know, today's age. We know we need to make the best of the resources that we have, and productivity is key, especially in this day and age where, you know, businesses are striving, you know, to do more, to do better, to go out and get, you know, more revenue, more customers, and employees need to be productive. And that's why this is kind of the cornerstone, if you will, the face of IT to the business. It has to be executed well. So with that, what I'll do is I'm going to pass control over here to John, and John's going to take us through the demonstration. And as I mentioned, if you do have questions, feel free to ask. Use the chat feature, and we will open up the lines at the end for questions. So with that, John, I will go ahead and hand things off to you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Jim. So Jim has already covered the, I guess, business benefits, and I do have a few more slides just to cover more functional areas of self-service and service catalog before getting into the demo proper. I think that the overall benefit that Jim mentioned of increased productivity is key, because the unified self-service is not just for non-technical end users, and I'll be getting back to that point in just a little bit. But first, in terms of what it actually is, the unified self-service interface is an optional interface that we provide with CA Service Management. We still have the traditional native interfaces in Service Catalog and IT Asset Management and Service Desk Manager, but the unified self-service becomes an optional interface that you can expose to your end users if you want to. What it does that's different is it introduces content from the three main components of service management: Service Desk, Service Catalog, and ITAM, along with some features that are just for it. For example, the collaboration capability in self-service. What this does is it gives your end users one place to go. They only need one link to remember, or for all of their interactions with IT. The other thing is that it removes the need for their having to know ITIL terminology. They don't need to know the difference between a request and an incident, for example. They go to one place. There's an easy-to-use form there for their submissions, the requests for help, and so forth. The overall goal here is consistency in entry, in actually ramping up tickets and introducing them to your support technicians queue, but also speeding things up for end users, and also in giving them a greater sense of control over their interactions with IT. Some of the key capabilities that we have in self-service are the ability to leverage knowledge content from multiple places, and we'll get into that on another slide, but also to be able to leverage community knowledge through collaboration. What we mean by this is that it allows you to set up internal message boards that you can align by technology or perhaps by department, really any way you need to, in order to take advantage of non-IT experts that you might have out there. For example, you might have human resources subject matter experts who can answer policy-related questions that end users often ask IT about, even though they are not really technical questions as such. I'll be sure to show this in the demonstration, but that's a powerful part of the unified self-service interface. Also, the certain key capabilities of the native interfaces for Service Desk and Service Catalog and so forth are exposed in unified self-service. For example, an end user can initiate a chat session using Service Desk Manager's support automation capability. I've mentioned the communities and the collaboration. The other aspect of this that's pretty cool is the ability to tap into knowledge that even your non-subject matter experts might have, knowledge and passion, I guess I should say. This really does depend on your end user culture, I think, the degree to which you might have users who would love to become team leads or non-technical enthusiasts in certain areas. And it also, of course, allows for technicians to monitor these conversations for accuracy and so forth. And again, I'll show this in the demonstration. The federated search capability that we have in Unified Self-Service allows end users to search with one search term or one search session, I guess I should say, and then get hits back from multiple content sources, from Service Desk knowledge documents, from Service Catalog service offerings, from SharePoint if you have that exposed, a simple Google search, and then those community messages or conversations that I was talking about. Now, in terms of mobility, Jim covered the main purposes, I think, of mobility in terms of the productivity. But what it is again an optional component of CA service management that allows technicians and end users to be able to perform their work through a mobile app. And that mobile app is for iOS or Android. It's downloadable from their respective app stores, and it takes advantage of the capabilities of the device in question. So for example, as a technician, I might be out in the field working on a piece of equipment. I can take a picture of that with my phone or tablet, attach the picture through the mobile app to the ticket that I'm working on, or make use of transcription services so I can use speech to text while I'm working on it, things like that. From an end user perspective, the benefits are that I can still make requests. I can approve requests if I happen to be a change advisory board member, for example, or if I'm just a manager who needs to approve a team member's request. I can also get information, so it isn't just about opening tickets. It's also about getting information. It does expose pretty much everything that a normal frontline technician or end user needs to be able to do. The sorts of things that you don't do through the mobile interface, be anything administrative, some of the super user stuff, change calendar related tasks, things like that. But actually working on tasks and tickets, searching for knowledge, getting help, those sorts of things can all be done through the mobile interface. And these I've got listed as benefits of the mobile solution, but really these apply to the entire conversation today, is you're trying to increase productivity by giving more information and more functional capabilities to end users, but also to technicians. You're increasing or improving the relationship between IT and the business as well by giving end users more interaction capabilities with IT, giving them extra information, more power at their fingertips, so they can get updates on what's going on with their submitted requests and so forth. So they get greater information, gives them a better sense of control over the experience. And definitely that leads us to the improved end user experience. We'll see that in the demo, but we try to keep things nice and simple so that user adoption by your end users does not become a barrier to improve business services. And then finally, the service catalog. Gosh, this could be a call all by itself, the service catalog, but in a nutshell, what we're doing with the service catalog is taking the services that you already offer your end users, your customers, and building them into an online catalog that provides them as a shopping experience where an end user can see certain options depending on their group membership and their role. They know that if they can select an item out of the catalog, then they're entitled to select that. If they can see an option for that item, then they're entitled to that option. Beyond that, it covers two main phases, the approval phase and then fulfillment. You can set up approval policies for what should happen with the request once it's submitted, and then fulfillment policies. This is a great opportunity to speed up your request management is through either automated fulfillment using our process automation component that we include with CA Service Management, or even in the case of manual tasks, just by staging and orchestrating those tasks in the appropriate order at the appropriate times and assigned to the appropriate parties can really speed things up on a fulfillment side. In terms of the way catalog tends to be used, it tends to follow this arc that we have on this slide, where initially you're going to be essentially defining your business services from a service catalog perspective. That is dictating which services are available to which organizations or business units, what options will be available, and then beyond that, what the approvals will be for these services and the fulfillment. Operational is where we're now starting to get into more of that automated fulfillment. And an example of this would be perhaps a technical end user a developer, wants to spin up a new virtual machine or provision a new VM. And their traditional way of doing this might be to fire off an instant message to the ESX owner and say, hey, I need a VM. I need it to be, Windows version such and such with this much RAM. Oh, and please put SQL on there as well, something like that. Well, that's a request, and that can be articulated as a service offering for technical users. The reason you might do that is, first of all, it can speed up the approval, but definitely it can speed up the fulfillment. That exact example of a VM being provisioned could be completely automated from a fulfillment standpoint because the hypervisor has an API that we can leverage. So that sort of thing could be fulfilled automatically, but it could be other things as well. Adding a user to an Active Directory data store if they're a new employee, for example, that could be completely automated, or adding a user to an application. Beyond that, in Service Catalog, beyond the operational, is where we start getting into the financial sides of things, where we get into things like being able to generate invoices and perform chargebacks or less formal showbacks, being able to bundle these services into service level agreements from a contractual standpoint and so forth. And the reason we have it as an arc here is because it tends to go in about this order with most organizations. They start with the foundational and then go through these and end up with the financial chargebacks and showbacks later. But certainly you could deploy this in any order you need to. And that is my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to go down into my demo here. Real quick, Jim, did we have any questions that I should answer before I start demonstrating?
No, John, I think we're good right now.
Okay, cool, thank you. I'm in a demo environment. This is demo data, demo users and demo content and so forth. But everything else about this is out of the box. I have not modified the look and feel or really changed the categorization or anything like that. The idea being that I'll make this as close to how you would see it right out of the box as possible. As an end user, when I'm in this interface, I'm presented with certain information right up front. For example, I can see my most recently opened request right here on the main page. Certainly if I need to see all of my historical requests and maybe those even pending my activity, that, where the technician needs something from me, I can follow the My Requests link to see what's going on here. The other thing that I can get at right off the bat is announcements. These announcements are filtered based on my physical location and my group membership. These come straight from Service Desk. And so these can be purely informational. They might let me know about service outages or maybe, reduced office hours for support on a holiday or something like that. The idea here is giving me more information that's relevant to me, and also hopefully maybe some call deflection. Being able, if I have an issue with an application and I see that there's an announcement indicating that that application is currently down for maintenance, well, there you go. I don't have to open up a ticket asking for help to connect to it. But most of what I'm going to be doing on this main page is going to be asking for help in some way. And we try to break this down into 3 broad classifications of interaction with IT. The first link here is if I have something broken. That is, something should work for me. Normally it does, but it's not right now. What I have there is an incident from an ITIL standpoint, but from my perspective as an end user, I'm reporting an issue. If I want something that I don't currently have, then I'm requesting something. And there we go to the second link. And then finally, I might have a question about something, or I might want information. Nothing's broken, and I don't need anything delivered to me. I just have a question, and that's the third main area of interaction. I'll just go through those in order here. Reporting an issue takes me to a very simple form where I can indicate the nature of my request, and then hit submit. But the other things that are available here are my contact information, at least as the system knows it. And so if I need to update that information, I can do that. Let's go ahead and say having problems. Something like that. Now, I could flag this as urgent, and certainly on the back end, that is going to change system behavior, change the actual urgency of the submitted issue here. And we also, by default, expose a category field. Now, this is going to be a list of categories from out of Service Desk, only those categories that you have made visible to your end users, to self-service. So what I might do here is say, yeah, this is expenses related. The reason I might do this, or the benefit, I guess I should say, of doing this is if I can categorize this in some way, then the system has a better idea of where to route this issue. I can have a team or even individuals, individual auto assignment set up for particular categories of issues. I'll just go ahead and submit this, and the system is going to evaluate my submission and figure out what to do next. Now, for reporting an issue, it's quite simple what to do next. This is an incident, essentially, and I need help with that. So what's happening on the back end is Service Desk has created an incident ticket and therefore applied the category and auto assignment rules and so forth at the incident level. The reasons that we create a separate incident are, I guess there are two reasons for this. The first is very practical. We don't need or want our end users to have to know the difference between requests and incidents, between service requests and change requests. Everything to them is a request in our unified self-service interface. The type of request that it is might result in other activity, and that leads us to our second reason for separating these two things. A given submission by me as an end user might result in an incident, like this one did, or it might result in a change order or a service request on the back end in Service Desk. It might result in a problem record, potentially. Or it might result in none of those ticket types in Service Desk and might just require activity by a technician through the Service Catalog's task management capability. By separating the initiating request from the fulfillment activity that results from it, this gives us much better flexibility. If I go back to my home page here, we can see that now we have this most recently submitted issue. I'm having problems submitting expenses. We can see that, of course, because it's an incident, essentially, it has bypassed approval. There's no approval needed for that sort of thing. It's now in the fulfillment stage. And I can see specifically where it has gone over its life cycle by clicking on the status. And that shows me all the different status transitions. Although with a newly submitted issue like this, there won't be a whole lot of them yet. If I need to, I can always drill down back into a request in order to maybe see more information about it, or to add a comment or add an attachment. I can certainly do that. This would be if I needed to maybe submit a screenshot. Like I told you I was getting that error message, and here attach a screenshot of the error message. If I need to, I can also follow the link to the underlying ticket, although most end users generally won't do that, but the capability is there. Now for situations where I want something as an end user, this is more where we get into the request to service area. And this is definitely where Service Catalog shines, because you can design services from the ground up or make use of the many sample services that we include with Service Catalog. And these services can be segmented so that maybe only technical users see certain services, while maybe other services are visible to everybody. You might have human resources related services just for the HR team to be able to submit, and so forth. My end user here is a technical user as well as, of course, a general user. So she sees a combination of things. She sees very simple sorts of service requests, like requesting a business card, where the service request is about as simple as it gets, just standard or embossed, right? That sort of thing. Or she can get more technical things. For example, she might say, she wants employee onboarding. This is going to include a combination of non-technical and technical aspects. This is an example of a bundled service where the service includes elements from building blocks that are other services. In this case, for example, in my demo system, a new employee gets the new laptop. And so that laptop request is part of this employee onboarding service. In my demo system, they also get a smartphone. So I can perhaps specify which smartphone I'd like, and then even other options like a tablet potentially. Notice that I do have costs associated with these options. This gets into that slide, that arc of functionality and service catalog. Lots of times what folks will do is they'll expose the cost of different options, even if that isn't going to result in any different system behavior, just purely for informational reasons for the end user. But you can tie process to that cost. We can have a different approval policy if we're over a certain dollar value, for example, or we might even just care about it from a reporting standpoint. What I'm going to do is go ahead and check this out. In addition to having the shopping cart model, you can also use one-click submit. So we'll go ahead and submit this, and I'll go back to another example from the catalog. So what the system is doing now is just like what we saw with the report an issue. The system is evaluating what to do next. Now, what to do next may be an approval, or it might jump straight to fulfillment the way the report an issue did. In this case, it definitely is going to approval. And in this particular case, I know that the end user's manager is going to approve this request or have to approve this. But let's look at another type of request, maybe something a little more technical. We might have under application services here, my end user as a developer might want to request a new database. And just like with requesting a new VM, quite often this takes the form of an instant message in a lot of organizations, where my developer might fire off an IM to their favorite DBA and say, hey, I need to test something. Can you just provision a SQL database for me? I need it starting Friday, and I'll need it for a couple of weeks. Right? But this is a perfect example of something that could be front-ended, if that's a term, with a service catalog form. And the benefit to me as a requester is that I get to see all of the different options that I'm entitled to in one place and just submit them. The benefit to the approver and fulfiller is that there's none of that going back and forth with the requester. Hey, did you need failover on this? What about replication? Did you need that? It's just all up front. Likewise, if they select an option that requires more information, even more, then you can build that into the form. So if my end user here says that she needs database design work, then that opens up whole new fields, including required fields, where I might have to say that, yes, I need this to be HIPAA and SOX compliant, for example. So a form doesn't have to be just for non-technical things or requesting business cards. And then I guess the last example I'd say here, just a good one because it ties into both service desk and IT asset management, would be a traditional actual asset request. In this case, requesting a smartphone. Notice that this was part of the employee onboarding, the new hire service as well. But in this case, I'm requesting just a smartphone, and I'm going to say, just use a cost center, but I would like it delivered overnight. I'll pick a data plan and maybe a charger, and then submit this. This is an example of the one-click submit approach. That's just something that you define at the service level. And as before, we've submitted this, so the system is evaluating what to do next. And what to do next is usually for this sort of thing going to be an approval. If I go to email here, my Outlook interface, we'll see that our end user's manager, Rita, has received notification requests for the two requests that she has just submitted. Let's open up one of those. When you design your services and catalog, you can make it so that approvers have to give a blanket approval or rejection, or like with this one here, you can make it so that the approvers can pick and choose. I approve this option, but reject that option there. In the latter case, they could also do a blanket approval of rejection. In this case, my approver is getting a notification about the smartphone device request. And so what I'm going to do is, rather than follow the link to go to the web interface, I'm just going to approve this straight through email. When I hit approve, it creates a new message for me. I don't have to type anything. All of the text that will be needed by catalog in order to parse the message is right there in the message. I just hit send. I'll do a send and receive. And what's going on now is the system is determining, okay, well, we've received our approval of the smartphone device. What happens next? Usually at that point, we would be going into the fulfillment stage. We'll come back to that. The last option here was the ask a question. This is where we get into that collaboration area, where for different communities that you have set up, people are going to be able to become a member of that community, submit questions, follow users, follow conversations according to their requirements. So in this case, in my demo system, I have these 3 communities set up. I'll go into general topics, and we'll see some examples of the sorts of things that are in here. Like a question: how can I transfer files from Android to iOS devices? This is something where, honestly, for this one, this might have been a better example of an IT-related request, right? Someone going to IT for help. But something that's maybe more not so technical would be, hey, has anyone tried Trello? What do you think of it? This is a great example of a thing that might be started as a conversation in the collaboration part of Unified Self-Service that leads to other activity, perhaps. So from this conversation, I can report an issue or make a request. I, of course, can follow the conversation. I can flag content as being inaccurate or inappropriate. And I can also, of course, give feedback or reply to it. One of the cool things about the collaboration is it becomes another source of information. So back on my home page here, I just go ahead and run a search. So let's say that I want to connect to the network remotely. So I'm doing a search for VPN to see what might go into that. And it's giving me hits from multiple places. This goes back to that slide where I was talking about the different federated search sources. First are the conversations in the collaboration part of Unified Self-Service, where people may have already asked this sort of question or at the very least discussed it. So, I can see some details. Okay, well, I don't really need to connect my iPad to the VPN. I have more of a general VPN request. So I might collapse that section and look at knowledge documents that themselves might have information that's useful to me. So I can follow a link to one of these knowledge documents. It's going to take me to the underlying knowledge document out of Service Desk. And of course, for me to even see this, the knowledge document needs to be visible to me as a requester. So based on my role or based on my group membership, this document is either going to be visible to me or not. So if it isn't, then it won't show up in the search results, of course. But if it is, I might go ahead and say, you know what, this solved my issue. I'll give some feedback on it and say, yeah, this solved my issue. And that can drive the reporting regarding knowledge and so forth. But let's say it didn't. Then I might say, okay, well, beyond break-fix sorts of things, I also have a catalog request item for requesting VPN access. So I might say, oh, okay, so I need to request VPN access before anything else. So I might submit this request and move on from there. The other two knowledge sources are going to be SharePoint, which I don't have installed on my system, and Google, just a simple Google search. So I mentioned that we would be in the fulfillment stage on that smartphone device request, and sure enough, there we are, we're in fulfillment, and specifically the status value that we're waiting on is the check availability value. And this would be where, at this point, depending on the process that you have designed for this service, you might go to an asset manager in IT asset management, or you might go to service desk as creating a task in service desk in order to complete this part of the fulfillment. Go ahead and open up the native catalog interface. This is not the unified self-service interface. I've logged in as more of a fulfiller, somebody who, sure, they can make requests of their own, but in this case, what this user needs to do is actually provision the smartphone device. So this is somebody who is going to be able to perform that task or transfer it to another user, delegate it to their assigned delegate, or put a hold on the request and so forth. So the catalog side of the picture has a whole lot of other capabilities. In this case, though, I can just drill down into the particular components of the service. You can see what our end user, June, put into her request. So she requested an iPhone with a particular data plan and a charger. So I'll say, you know what, I filled the charger from inventory. And I'll save that. But I still have the device itself, the smartphone device itself. And in order to provision that, I might do the same thing. I might say, you know what, let's fill that from inventory as well. You know, in other words, I could have said for both of those items, I'm going to fill them from inventory. But this would also be potentially where the IT asset management side of things comes into the picture. And I won't dwell on this point too much, just because I don't know if everybody on the call has our asset management or asset management in general, whether CA provided or not. But what I can do is from this interface, I can click on the palette icon in order to go to the asset management interface to find a particular, in this case, iPhone. So I'll run a search for unclaimed iPhone. And I do have one left. So I'll select that, and the system is going to assign it to the requester, to June Arnold. So I'll fulfill this. And I've done my job as an asset manager. What has happened now on the back end is that particular iPhone has been associated with June Arnold, with the requester, but also with the request. So the request has been updated. Since the system uses the same underlying data for all of these things that I've been showing you, the same record for the asset, whether I'm looking at it from an asset management perspective or service desk or service catalog, it saves a lot of time on the integration, for example, or designing these processes. So at this point, in this particular process, the way we have it designed is a new change order, a standard change has been opened to actually configure and deliver that smartphone. And this would be where Service Desk would kick in. And, I'll go ahead and log in as a Service Desk technician. And we'll come full circle here. So as a Service Desk tech, I might see that I now have a new standard change on my queue. This one for configuring and delivering an iPhone. The request itself is linked in the description of the incident, and I have the request number. And I have the actual device linked to the change order. And other things about the change order have been set as well. So the category of the change, the fact that it's a standard change as opposed to a normal or emergency change. Those sorts of things can drive things like assignment, to whom it got assigned, as well as things like the workflow and any SLAs that might be in play for it. And at this point, in Service Desk, I, as a technician, would complete my normal activities, whether this change had been opened by a user as a result of a Service Desk technician opening the change order manually, or through request management out of Service Catalog. It's all the same to me as a technician. What I know is I have all the information I need. The fact that this is even in my queue to be worked on means that it's approved and ready to go. We have the asset in question. It's approved. I can just get going. So that's the benefit to me as a technician. That sort of takes us back to the unified self-service interface, where depending on the nature of the request, I'm going to see different events in the life cycle of this request. So you can see that the very latest thing is now the Service Desk change order has been opened. So I, as an end user, I see that there's activity going on with my request. I don't have to pick up the phone to ask what's going on. Or if it has been a long time, I might check the status and see, oh, my manager is the one holding this up. She needs to approve this. So I pick up the phone and call her rather than IT, perhaps. And I hope that this gives you some ideas about some of the ways that unified self-service can be used, and some of the ways that it can speed things up, both for end users and for technicians and for approvers even. And at this point, I guess we're at 10 minutes to the top of the hour, so we will open things up for Q&A. And actually, I'm going to pause my screen a moment just so I can check the chat to see if we do have any Q&A. But Jim, do we have any questions at the moment?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, John. I've got one for you. It's and again, we're probably going to get into some technical questions here, so we'll try to answer those the best we can. If we can't answer them on the call, we'll try to respond and answer those questions as quickly as we can. But the first question, John, is in terms of reporting issues, there seems to be an issue, no pun intended, in terms of pushing comments from comments that when a person reports an issue, what gets typed or entered under comments does not get reflected in SDM. So I'm assuming that could be through self-service, whatever comments and free text field is getting entered is not getting pushed back into SDM. Do you have any thoughts on that, workarounds, or is that something that we can do, or is that just an enablement feature?
Oh, I think that is something that can be done through the integration. That's a good takeaway, though. So if you're not seeing that, then we need to find out why. Because attachments and comments from a request form can be passed to Service Desk. They're just another field like anything else. So if the out-of-the-box integration is not doing that for you, then we need to address that. But yeah, the integration is such that any field from really any component can be passed to the other through the integration. If it's not doing that, then we definitely do need to address that.
Okay, so hopefully, Vinod, we answered that question. This is another question about versioning. So what you've demonstrated in terms of unified self-service, service catalog, the question is really, is this specifically about 14.1 or 12.9, or you know, is this a 14.1 or 14.x presentation, I guess, in terms of what you've demonstrated and what we've talked about?
Great question. Okay, so this is 14.1. I have been showing 14.1. 12.9 did have, well, prior to 14.1, I'll say, we had open space, which was an attempt to have, you know, the collaboration, for example, and an improved self-service interface. The unified self-service interface, though, that incorporates catalog and IT asset management and looks like this, for example, that is something that we introduced in 14.1. So in 12.9, it won't look like this, and it won't behave exactly like this either.
Okay. Then we have another question here from Martin, and that is specifically around the unification of the user interfaces. And actually, maybe I'll just try to tackle the first part of this question. Really the question is around Service Desk catalog having their own ticket numbers and sequences, notifications, things like that. And my takeaway from that question is, if I can speak to this, is that we are looking to do more in terms of the unification, if you will, around, you know, service catalog, the user experience, but also around the back end and making them a little bit more homogenized in terms of, you know, the way that they work together, and, you know, and specifically around passing data and things like that. I don't have a specific answer to that. You know, in terms of the actual, you know, passing of those, you know, incident numbers or request numbers back into SDM and how we reconcile that. John, I don't know if you have an answer to that.
Yeah, so there's the, I guess, the immediate future sort of answer, and then longer term. I think I'm not a product manager, by the way, so I'll just tell you how things are and how I think they're going to be in the immediate future. I do think we're going to continue to see different IDs, for example, between Service Desk and Service Catalog, and that's for a couple of reasons. You know, I talked about reasons early on in my presentation about, from a functional standpoint, why we separate the initial request from any activity that might result from it. But from a, I guess, practical, technical standpoint, there's still separate objects. You know, a request in Service Catalog is using different table space. It has different triggers and so forth from a Service Desk incident, for example, or any other sort of Service Desk ticket. But related to that, I would just say, so related to that, though, is if I, as an end user, if I have a number of incidents that have been opened maybe through phone calls, but also some that have been opened as a result of my own request submissions through Unified Self-Service, ideally, I would be able to see all of those in one place. And, you know, as we saw, when I go to my requests here, well, I don't know if I pointed this out, but this is showing these are requests that I have submitted through Unified Self-Service or that have been created for me through Self-Service or Service Catalog. This does not immediately display tickets that have been created in Service Desk, for example, by a tech where I am flagged as the affected end user, right? This is different from the ticket list in the employee self-service interface or customer self-service interface in Service Desk proper. I do get that information by clicking on let me go back, sorry. Don't see your request listed below? Try looking here. This link does take me to a more comprehensive list. That said, it's not obvious to a lot of technicians or end users that that's what that's for. So it is a good question, you know, and I think that is one thing that our product management is wrestling with, is how to keep things easy to use for end users while also giving them all information that might be relevant to them. I guess I would just say that the way we might tackle that is if you do have certain types of users who need to be able to see everything, including maybe change orders that have been opened by IT, where they're flagged as the affected end user or belonging to the affected organization, there at that point, the employee self-service interface would be an option still. You can modify that form through the web screen painter and through the scoreboard designer in order to show that information directly. So not an ideal.
Yeah, I was going to say, John, I mean, unfortunately, from a technical standpoint, I think you probably gave the best answer in terms of how to approach the problem or the challenge now. I would just say, again, to reiterate, I know product management is looking at this particular problem in terms of the unification, not only of the interfaces themselves, but the usability between the applications and bringing those things together, both front end and back end. So that is under review, and I know that they're looking at it. So hopefully we can get to a better place sooner rather than later, let's put it that way. Let's see if we have any other questions. Let's see. I don't see any other questions, John.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time, and I hope you got good information out of this. And if you do have follow-up questions, please do send them to us or reach out to
John, there is one more question. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
There's one there from Rebecca. Is unified self-service required for the mobile app? Can we use mobile app without unified self-service?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it is required because it is still making use of that same information, the collaboration, the catalog forms, and so forth. The communities, it's all part of the mobile app as well. But that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe it is. I have not seen anybody deploy the mobile app without unified self-service. I will say that.
Good. Hey, I just wanted to jump in before we close up here at the top of the hour. I just want to remind everyone that, this is a series of webinars here for the community, and the next Meet the Experts session will be September 30th, where we're going to be talking about process automation. It's going to be another great session, and we'd like you to participate, have you on board. We think it's great. We do appreciate the participation from the community. So just wanted to say thank you from a product marketing, product management, sales, engineering, everybody. It's fantastic that we can all get together and have these conversations. So just wanted to say thank you. With that, Chris, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. And again, to reiterate, we have recorded this session. So if you have your peers, friends that missed this session, feel free to send them the link. Let them know that we had this time here to talk about Unified Self-Service Service Catalog. Hopefully it was informative. John, you did a great job, as always. I'd like to say thank you. And again, we hope to see you September 30th. And again, appreciate everyone's participation. Everyone have a great rest of your day, rest of the week. And again, thanks everyone.
Thank you.